That's wildly inappropriate.
Wanna have you near me? I wanna have you hear me say it.
Oh.
Well, you know it is a thrill when you go downhill, 'cause you're riding on the mountain of your own free will. And you're zipping in a flash on a daring dash, down a waterfall so rapid that you go split splash. Splash Mountain!
Partying is cool. Dying is not.
It was fantastic.
Natalie is fantastic.
It's going to be fantastic. I mean, it's going to be...
Yeah, absolutely fantastic, and it's awesome. I'm enjoying absolutely awesome.
It's so... I'm so happy. George is so happy. It's just fantastic.
Welcome to the Bombadcast.
What is up, Bombad fam? Welcome to another Bombad Thursday. I'm your boy, the Cannon Junkie. I'm here in my trucker best, ready to wine and dine you on this very special evening. Once again, it is Bombad Thursday, and I'm glad you're here because, listen, we got a lot of stuff going on. We got more than just this main show. We've got Hyperfocus, a show with myself. Let me see. Here we go. There I am. Look at me, all scholarly. It can be scholarly. We can talk about 50 different topics like me and Boop did last week. It can really range from whatever you want to hear. Honestly, and probably some things that you don't want to hear. That is Hyperfocus. It's a conversation show every Tuesday, 9:30. My boy Scotty every Wednesday is doing some Bombad Gaming, except for this Wednesday because he was a little busy. I don't know if you know this. He was a mite bit busy at the moment, so he didn't get to put one out, but he's got some awesome just stories, I'm sure, to share with us tonight, and I can't wait for that. But check out Bombad Gaming every Wednesday, and then, of course, you have the main show, the wonderful special flagship that, I don't know, might surprise you, might sicken you, might make you fall in love with life again. Who knows? But that we're here. We are the Bombadcast. And before I go any further, I got to bring in my boy. I got to bring in a man who has just touched the feet of royalty. I got to bring in the one, the only, one of the founders with myself of the one and only club, Mr. Scotty J-Ro.
Baby!
That was impressive.
There's a before meeting kiss and after meeting kiss. I'm not gonna lie.
How's it feel?
Pretty good high right now. I'm
Running
feeling
pretty
good.
high?
No, I'm not. I'm not running high, but I'm feeling good, people.
You feel good? You feel good?
People, are we feeling good? Whoa, my camera zoomed in.
Whoa,
People,
what's going on? Oh, people. Scotty, I have a surprise for you, actually. I have a surprise for you. I got a video from Paul's cousin, actually.
What?
Paul's cousin found out you were going like
your
that you were.
neighbor?
Well, no, I mean, actually, he might be, frankly. But I got this, and it's from Paul's cousin, Paul Stanley's cousin, Stan Stanley, and it's a little troubling. It's a little troubling. I think he was jealous because he hasn't actually met. You live right next door to Paul.
My buddy.
You got
He
to
invited
meet
me
the
to that
rest
show
of the
last
crew. You got to meet the
Yep.
rest of the crew. I think he's a little jealous because I don't think he's seen Paul since he started Kiss. So
Oh,
let's just go ahead. Here's a special message from Stan Stanley.
Stan Stanley.
I want to rock and roll all night and party every day. And I'm terribly sorry if it offends your fake moralistic bullshit and your plastic and cardboard lies. I'm really sorry. Fuck.
I was like,
I cut it
does
off at
look
the
like
end.
Stan though. It does look like
It does-
Stan a little
That's
bit.
Stan. That was Stan.
Wow.
Do you want to see it again? Do you need to see that again?
It looks. I mean, Paul and Stan look a lot alike. I will say that.
He has
It's
the
very
same
strange.
lipstick. I think he has the same. He's a little more. He's a little more shaky with it.
Yeah,
though.
a little bit. Let's see that again.
Let's just see
take
that.
it all
I
in.
want to rock and roll all night and party every day. And I'm terribly sorry if it offends your fake moralistic bullshit and your plastic and cardboard lies. I'm really sorry. Fuck.
A new favorite.
I
Bond
cut
villain.
off the tail end of that. I mean,
bet
he
you
cuts
did.
it off really quick, but he
still.
gets out the entire F word.
Wow.
And yeah,
Never heard
yeah,
that word
that's
fully said before. It's weird.
well. That I was telling Scotty beforehand. I haven't gone to my weirdness, like my weird mind, my TikTok weird mind for a hot
Yeah.
minute, and I went there today to see if I could find some kind of weird James Bond-esque
You-
like
wait.
weirdness.
I did find a weird James Bond hiding out on a road.
You
I'm gonna
found a
bring him
weird
in.
James Bond hiding
Yeah,
out on
can
a
I
road.
bring-
Okay,
can
bring
I-
him in. But
Okay.
this was bring him in. This was that video though was the second video I found of
Good
Stan.
God.
So
That's
it
incredible.
was meant to be. So
This
but
James
listen,
Bond has a southern drawl. It's really weird, and he's
Ooh.
live
like
broadcasting
some Southern Comfort whiskey
from a road
or something.
Yeah, let's see what it
Yeah.
is. He's live broadcasting
here?
from a road. Let's see what it is. What? It's Nick.
Oh,
I didn't know. it was
wow.
Nick. Wow, Nick, you look
who
great.
is that dapper hillbilly?
What? Oh man! And what is
Dapper
your
Hillbilly.
Say
That's
your
gonna be my
last
next
name
band
first.
name.
I'm sorry.
you're
This is
Mielke.
perfect. This is
Nick
perfect.
Mielke.
So wait, your last name's what?
Milky.
Oh, how do you like your cereal?
What's your first name? No, I'm just kidding.
Milky.
Wait, how do you like your
Chocolate.
cereal?
Wait, what?
Shaken, not stirred.
It's incredible.
That's right.
Look at him. Look at y'all. Just take a second to admire this. Look at the effort he went
this.
through. People,
That's a nice. Whoa!
This is
explain your setup for the people at home because they need to know.
this is I got in contact with Q Branch and
Good.
they provided me with one of the new stealth tuxedos. So
Looks good.
if I hit
that
just
is-
the right button,
Oh, you just got to be turned around so no one can see the tie and the
That's right.
shirt.
that's right.
But that's still very cool. That's very
the magic
covert.
of Q Branch.
Oh man! You know what? Know what Jerry's dressed as? The unlikely hero that helps James Bond halfway through the movie.
I'm the
Looks
guy
like
driving a truck and
Jerry
he's
is my
like,
Felix
"I need to
Leiter.
borrow your car." I'm a
Jerry
truck
is
driver who
Leiter.
dies in a car chase. That's what happens in
Yeah.
this one. Yes, yeah.
Man,
I go, "Rassafrass and break dancers," whatever, something, like as I swerve out of the way.
I love
Break
everything
dance.
about that. I couldn't figure that
You're
one
welcome.
out. Nick,
You're welcome.
Your microphone sounds really nice. I just want to
Well,
say
Yes,
that
it
out
does.
loud.
Thanks for noticing.
Really smooth.
Don't know if that
Like a
means
martini.
anything to you. Oh, he's gone. Zoom, meow.
I'll never leave. You'll never lose me.
Good,
keep-
good. Just like
Never say
Bond.
never again.
Yep.
That's right.
You pulled
There's
it
no
right out of
time
my
to
butt.
die.
Oh man, I can't tell who's better dressed, Nick or Scotty. Dang. I know why. I know
that
why.
ATG
he
shirt
said
Thanks,
is
that.
Pete.
fire.
Thanks,
I wore
Pete.
this at the airport today. One guy actually looked at it for a second. He didn't say anything. He looked at it. I think he was on acid. But
He was like,
said,
"Have you
As
really
most
been
people
around
in
the
the airport
galaxy?" Like,
I wanted to tweet. I've traveled around the galaxy today. Something stupid. But anyway, guys, James Bond Badcast, what is happening? We never talk about, well, we do talk about off-kiltered things that aren't Star Wars. But this right here, this is a memorable episode because it is the end of an era. My friends, next week, we're going to be witnessing the very last film that features Daniel Craig. And it's weird because they've been like hyping that up. And they've never done that with a Bond movie before. Because Pierce Brosnan never had like it's his last one. Roger Moore never had it's his last one. And Sean Connery obviously never had it's his last one. But I mean he kind of did, but not quite like this is. Like everyone's like, this is Daniel Craig's last Bond movie. So who's seeing it next week? Who's seeing it opening night? Let's see. Is Bond himself seeing it? There you go. Awesome.
Yes.
Awesome.
I will disappear into the seats.
Are we going to be taking are we coming in late or something or everything? Like, what is the assignment?
My viewing's at 4 o'clock. My viewing's at 4 o'clock, so I'll be able to make it.
It'll probably be like I'll probably end up seeing like a Monday night movie or something because I actually am starting. Listen, here's a little bit of life for you. I got a new job, so I'm gonna have a more reasonable schedule where I'll be off in time to have my kiddo, and also
everyone clap.
Have a weekend to myself. I have to work this entire weekend, and next weekend I have my kiddo, and I don't think she likes James Bond. She's more into unicorns and rainbows. Not many unicorns and rainbows in a Bond film that I've seen, but this one may surprise me.
We don't know. 25 could have it all.
Q Branch could be like, here is a unicorn pin that shoots rainbows or something, you know.
Pierce Brosnan got the invisible car. I got the invisible tuxedo. Daniel Craig is going to get the rainbows and unicorns.
Rainbow unicorn pin. The rainbow unicorn pin.
Please put F.
Oh, hey, can I do one quick aside? Because
go ahead.
Scotty played the Screaming Scotty clip, and I've thought about this off and on all day. Either way, it's relevant to Scotty.
Okay.
This Saturday, and this is very outside the box for both Bond and Star Wars people, there's a big event happening in Baton Rouge, Louisiana.
What is it?
And that big event is the Auburn Tigers versus the LSU Tigers.
I don't remember that. Yep.
Everyone can scream "Go Tigers" as much as they want, but I hope
no one gets in trouble.
Wins.
Well, how do we? How about we get a little "Go Tigers"? How we get a little "Go Tigers" going?
Yes.
Go Tigers! 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 Go Tigers!
God,
it's your show. I'm done interrupting.
He's getting fired this year, which is more than likely going to happen. So it makes me sad.
He's going to be so confused. Go Tigers!
Yeah, literally. Oh no,
Tigers!
Not
those Tigers. These Tigers.
I'm telling you this. You're going to love this. But one of my friends caught him running around LSU lakes. We have really big lakes on our college campus in Baton Rouge. And he was running around him. He's like, hey, Coach O. And he's like shirtless, like sweating in short shorts. He's like, go Tigers. And keeps running. I'm like, dude, he might not say anything else but that. So
Can you go walk around that lake, whatever time that friend went?
Heck yeah.
With a GoPro, and please get footage of that man in nothing but biker shorts, sweating and saying, "Go Tigers, go Tigers."
That is going to be the case.
I want that. I don't live there. I want that so bad right now.
All wants for Christmas is a shirtless Coach O screaming "Go Tigers."
Give me shirtless Coach O. I don't know why. I stand it. I stand it hard.
I'm gonna pull it up. I do have a picture of a shirtless Coach O in Nick.
I don't know if I'm quite ready for it yet.
He was running through Alabama.
Let's go.
Shirtless Coach O. Alabama. But anyway, back to the lecture.
Love you the mostest too, boo.
There he is. This is ridiculous. Very, very excited to say this. Tonight's episode is going to deal entirely with James Bond, and
please.
I'm just happy to talk about this movie because it holds a lot more nostalgia for me. And funny enough, I didn't realize it held so much nostalgia for Nick because Nick also was really down whenever I was playing. What was it? Nightfire? Yeah.
Yes.
And you were like in the chat the entire time watching me play it. And like most people don't stick the entire time because it's a lot to watch, really. and literally,
you're always
it's a
asking
lot.
for food. I mean, come on, no.
Yes, it's really-
Nightbot. I take it back. Nightbot is asking for. Holy crap! that is a man right there who likes for the Tigers to go.
Look
That's
at him.
yeah. No, Mr. Bond, I want you to go Tigers.
If he could say "Stay Bombad," I would probably pay $200 in a cameo from Real
Oh
Stay
my
Bombad.
lord!
That's fantastic.
Oh my lord!
Here's an even better one.
Is this what Eric was
Big
talking about?
exciting.
Is this what Eric was talking about with the Destin, Florida? Look at that!
Yep.
Look at that!
Coach
That is what
O'Brien.
you call a zaddy right there, folks. That right there. That's a zaddy.
It becomes that Twitter meme. Men, what's keeping you from looking like this?
Like this. Look at the dude, man.
You really did these? Holy
Wow, it doesn't surprise me. I mean, he's like a unicorn, guys. It's few and far between, but you do see him. Much like a
That's
unicorn,
incredible.
James Bond has a
James
unicorn
Bond.
pin in the new movie. It's a scoop. And I really want to start off with this. There's a legacy to this character that is, and this sounds really, this is against our religion here, but the legacy is longer than Star Wars, and I wouldn't say more rich, but there is something very interesting about this character that has changed a lot over the past couple of years, and I'm very happy to talk about it. But how many of y'all grew up watching it? I know I did. That's something my dad showed me at a very young age. Jerry, were you kind of shielded away from it? Because I know your family grew up a little more conservative Christian.
You know what's funny is we actually went over to a friend's house, like a church function at a church friend's house, and there was like a James Bond marathon on TV, and their son, the older son, one of the younger sons, who was still at home, was watching it, and he was kind of explaining it to me. Really good guy, really honestly like a Seth Parnell, Gallinorian Saber type of guy, and so like just a really good solid guy. And it was never like my parents were always like I had like I wouldn't say a sheltered like strict.
No, I
like they showed me Back to the Future. They showed me Ghostbusters. We watched Christmas Vacation for corn's sakes. You know, I mean, like, but
Yeah.
there were just some things that I don't think that they were like, oh, we're gonna go watch this. They knew James Bond. They like James Bond. My mom is the reason why I'm into movies. Honestly, my mom is the one who loves movies. Frankly, I still will sit up at night and watch movies with my mother, but it was just never. James Bond was never in our repertoire. At home and everything. So it wasn't on the VHS rack. You know, we had Dances with Wolves, which we never watched. I'm pretty sure my dad probably saw that in '93 or whatever and was like, I need to own that. And then we never watched it again, as far as I know. I never did.
Well, so it was. It wasn't like a. It's not like it was passed down to you. So it wasn't that kind of experience. Okay.
My first experience, if we're wanting first experiences, my first experiences was 2006 when Casino Royale came out.
Oh wow!
And I was working at the movie theater. There was like we would screen all the movies beforehand. Everyone was kind of good friends with each other and stuff. I mean, we got along well enough that like everyone would like show up to watch the big movies and stuff.
Sure.
The Thursday night before they were supposed to release, right when we were screening them. And I remember that night. The assistant manager at the time, TJ, shout out to TJ Eason if you're watching, man.
TJ,
you're a badass. Love you. He was a huge Bond fan. Would be very jealous of Nick's disappearing tuxedo. But he almost like, because we all at that time we wore like tuxedo, we wore like white shirts and bow ties and stuff at the theater. I don't know if he like dressed up in a tux, but he was dressed nice, and they had martinis before coming. The manager and the assistant manager had martinis before they came down there, and I was not a drinker at the time, so I was like thinking like, oh, they've had one martini, they must be effing wasted,
destroyed,
or something, because I had no fucking clue. Excuse me, there's my one. I'm sorry, I apologize. And put the kids to bed. No, I remember like being there, like I mean, towards the end of like that one, that made me fall in love with Bond.
Oh, that was a great,
Daniel Craig was my first
Bond.
Bond to watch.
Mm-hmm.
Craig is my favorite. Casino Royale is still a classic to me. And I'll get into some of the other stuff, but that night cemented for me. Oh, this is why people like this.
Yeah.
And I remember the final scene of that where Bond takes out the guy's kneecap who's like kind of been orchestrating the whole thing.
Amazing.
And that's the first, someone posted it today on Twitter. That's the first time, or yesterday or something. That's the first time they played the James Bond theme in that movie. They save it until they say, until he becomes Bond.
He says, and that's the first time he says Bond, James Bond.
Yep.
Standing
James
over him
Bond.
on the steps. Have
So
you guys
good.
watched, it's on
me.
Apple TV
Choked
Plus
up.
and it's actually free. So even if you're not a subscriber, there's the Becoming James Bond documentary about
I
need to
saw
watch
it
that.
today, but
It's
I
like
haven't watched
45
it.
minutes. And
It's
it's
good.
phenomenal. It's so good. I
Oh.
started it a couple weeks ago and finished it today in anticipation of being here with y'all.
Sure.
And it's so good because it does talk about, we're talking about legacy. So I want to hit a couple of things, but with Craig, which I think we'll circle back to in a minute. It was a journey. Like when he was announced as James Bond in 2005, after Pierce Brosnan, like there was lots of outcry and complaints. And, they had the thing where he was wheeled in on the boat in London and they made him wear a life jacket because the British Navy or whoever it was that was bringing him in on that boat, they're like, we can't change regulation. Like he has to wear a life jacket. And even that little thing was kind of like, but James Bond wouldn't wear a life jacket. Like he's a badass. Like it was this whole thing. And so then there were all these complaints about a blonde James Bond and all, him and where he had come from, the other roles that he had. And I had forgotten all that. Like we've had him, 2005 to 2021, like that's a long time to be in this character. And I had forgotten a lot of that controversy when it was announced that it was going to be him. But then the other side of that coin is the paparazzi photo came out of him coming out of the ocean in that scene early in Casino Royale where he's just ripped. Yeah. And the tide turned literally around the world and people were like, oh, holy crap. Like he's going to be James Bond. This is going to be good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there was a lot there, but if I can, there was something I read earlier and I saved it because I thought it was really good, talking about the legacy of James Bond. The first James Bond movie, the real kind of big first James Bond movie was 1963 or 62, okay. Dr. No. And there's an article, I think the last name of the person that wrote it is Blyer. And I just wanted to read this real fast because I think it's really awesome. It says in 1963, James Bond reflected some important elements about American culture. Cork said, at the time, the U.S. was fighting its own internal demons with the civil rights movement, highlighting the ugly undercurrent of racism in so much of white America. And simultaneous to that, you see this embrace of British culture, which seems so much more elegant and urbane. Bond not only embodied these themes in American culture, but he was the perfect hero for the sexual revolution because the birth control pill was approved by the FDA in 1960.
That makes
and
sense.
The Jet Age. So like, the advent of James Bond in the early 60s is really the advent of modern culture in a lot of ways. And so what I tie that to, and this is weirdly relevant because tomorrow the Many Saints of Newark comes out, the Sopranos prequel movie, which I'm hardcore about the Sopranos. And so in the Talking Sopranos podcast this week, their guest was Steven Van Zandt, who's the guitar player for Bruce Springsteen, the E Street Band.
Yeah.
He played Silvio in The Sopranos, and he said something that never occurred to me that I thought was so fascinating. He was born in the 50s, and so he became a musician probably at the age of 10 or 11 in the 60s, and his words were, I was around for the majority of the development of rock and roll, except for those first 10 years. Like his entire life, the change and the evolution of rock and roll, the 50s, the 60s, Elvis, Bill Haley, all those. So for that to be such a wide ranging change to now playing with Bruce Springsteen all these years. All that stuff. Yeah. But the same thing with Bond. Bond started in the early 60s.
Yes.
The Cold War, civil rights movement. And it was a British thing, but very American at the same time. So it creates this weird overlap of like helping advance society, helping us to see, like he says in the article, British culture was much more refined, seemingly, much more urbane, much more. So it gave us something to strive for. It gave us something to look at aspirationally and decide, oh, holy crap, like we want to be in this. And then the other neat part about that with the Broccoli family, who has always been involved as producers and all that kind of stuff, is the ability to change it over decades. 70s and 80s James Bond are not the same as 60s James Bond. And so it's been a character that has been able to evolve.
That's one thing I wrote down.
Craig.
Exactly.
Yeah, go ahead.
in my notes, I had written down that it's been really reflected of the times, right? You know, the last Pierce Brosnan Bond movie was very, very interesting in that same regard because it was all like super, you know, high tech and like it's like the Y2K era with, you know, what was the name of that final one?
Very tongue in cheek as well. The Brosnan era, especially towards the end.
Yeah,
I felt very tongue in cheek
with Madonna doing the music for it, and like it was like super CG, and like the amount of times they used explosions in that movie was obscene. It was just like so reflective of action movies from that era. Whereas when Casino Royale came out, it kind of took a slower pace, and it kind of felt a little bit more planned out. Whereas those Pierce Brosnan ones were like just super dramatic
and you have that even earlier back with Roger Moore and Sean Connery, like the eras and the feel of the different Bond movies is very specific. Like the Connery Bonds, as a general rule, are a little more realistic feeling.
Heck yeah!
Whereas the Roger Moore Bonds tend to get a little bit more into cheese, craziness, there's some distinct lines. Yeah,
I honestly think that Roger Moore might be my second favorite. I'm just spitballing here.
Same,
Roger Moore might be my second favorite. I love that cheese.
Yeah, well, that's the thing, and like he was a more of a charming Bond than the other ones. He was more witty. He was more clever. Whereas the other Bonds,
Connery was a little more quote unquote manly. He was a little bit more alpha male.
Yes.
Versus Moore, who was going to be a little bit more subversive.
Exactly. Right. Roger Moore was cute while Sean Connery was just straight up sexy. Like I think most men want to be Sean Connery. Like I mean that. I think if you watch,
I want to be Daniel Craig. I'll just be honest.
Well, of course,
fairness, I want to be Daniel Craig too. But
now, even as a kid, I was aware
have those cuts, the V cuts.
That oh, stop it. I was aware as a kid that even Pierce Brosnan's stuff was just so over the top and like very, very ridiculous. And like, do I like that? Sure, when I'm in that mood. But if I want to like sit there and watch a Bond film that just kills, I mean, it's always going to be a Craig Bond because it's so perfect to me. But what were you going to say, Nick? I'm sorry.
I was just going to say that brings up what we were kind of talking about before we came on air, which is you can go on iTunes right now and get the first 24 Bond films in a collection for $99.
That's incredible.
Which I haven't yet decided that I won't do it.
I'm looking it up right now.
I grew up with these movies.
Just as long as you share your password and everything, that's fine.
I grew up with these movies. I watched these movies as a kid. I have a lot of nostalgia for Connery and Moore and those era Bond movies. But at this stage in my life, there's not a lot of occasions when I sit down and go, I really want to watch Diamonds Forever right now. I don't really, I don't necessarily want to watch Goldfinger right now. I have had multiple occasions when I've said, I would love to watch Skyfall right now. I would love to watch Casino because the Craig era Bonds are great filmmaking, regardless of being a James Bond, separate from being a James Bond film. I love the other ones, and I still watch. You know, if TBS is doing a James Bond marathon, by God, I'm going to watch it. Like it's there, I'm in.
Hell yeah!
But the Craig, so that's one of those kind of lines of demarcation for me with older Bond versus the older Bonds are nostalgia. I grew up with them. I watched them as kids. They have a lot of appeal, and you also get to look back on them in an era that we're in now, and realize what parts of them don't age so great.
Sure, I mean, which is pretty cool.
You only live twice. He went under plastic surgery to look like a Japanese person. That's real rough.
Literally,
right now.
That is not something we should even, like that's just part of it. Like that shouldn't be even, referenced in pop culture. It's crazy how that even happened, and it's very
it's a time capsule.
It really
is.
It's
absolutely a time capsule.
It's a time capsule.
In a lot of
look,
great
white
ways.
people were really in charge back then. We didn't know what the hell was going on.
But if you go back and kind of to reference that little paragraph from that article I read, talking about the changes in the adaptations culturally, the Bond movies had a lot more representation than other things you got in the 60s. You got, what was the movie that Jimmy Dean was in? Was that You Only Live? Or no, that's Diamonds Are Forever.
Diamonds
Are
Forever.
Got the two bad girls, and you've got what's her name, who was in, was one of the stars of a lot of the like blaxploitation films.
Yes.
And you have, Kananga, and there was racial and color representation across a lot of those films.
Most movies did
in
that.
the 60s, way ahead of the curve of a lot of other things. And part of that may have been the British side of it, but a lot of these were American produced movies, and
They're usually ahead of the curve. Well, sometimes.
Yeah, I think there's some stuff in there that we don't always talk about.
So Nick, you grew up with them too. Like that was something that was like on your family.
Absolutely.
You know,
My
like
dad,
VHS reel. Okay, I get that. I get that. Same with me. And like, I just remember like growing up, enjoying it, and like getting video games for it for my PlayStation 2, and then just enjoying the fact that it was just really well made. A lot of it, especially the 80s ones, were the ones I gravitated towards because I was a kid. And like, you know, when Roger Moore's fighting on the Golden Gate Bridge, it's just like insane. You're like, this is the craziest thing. I love everything about this. So I think there's something to be said about that. And like, for me personally, I don't remember when it was when I first watched the first one, but damn it, I have to find the picture now. I wish it was on this computer. There's a photo of me for fifth grade Halloween. I have a picture of me. I spray painted my hair black and I'm holding a gun, like an airsoft gun. That was James Bond.
Nice.
But that being said, it's crazy how much it's stuck. And like, I'll never forget seeing, you know, Daniel Craig's first performance in theaters. The first Bond I saw in theaters. And this is a funny story about that. I think y'all would love this. But I had a really good friend named Olivia growing up. And then I had another good friend named Chase. And Chase, I just saw Kiss with Chase. And I'll never forget, we're at school the day Casino Royale came out. And we're talking, and I had planned to go see it with my dad that night, and Olivia was going to come with us. And then Chase is like, oh, can I come too? I'm like, well, I don't think my dad can, like, take 2 kids. Like, I don't think he can, like, afford doing that, whatever it was. And I kid you not, we're sitting in the arcade of that theater, me and Olivia and my dad's, like, paying for us to play games. And Chase, his dad, and his brother walk in, and we all go see the movie together, which is funny because
awesome.
I was pretty much like, you know, you can't come with us. He's like, I'm still coming. And so we watched the infamous, you know, to the left, to the right scene. Yep. And I'm like in 5th grade. I'm like, what is happening? But even as a 5th grader, I knew.
That's one of the best scenes in James Bond, amazing. Period. I'm sorry.
But they highlight that in that documentary.
Like, do they really?
Yes, they talk about that particular scene and some of the aspects of, like, Daniel Craig had a lot of input on things that Bond would and wouldn't do. And like the aspects of Bond in order to say, why wouldn't he just do that? Like a great example that they focus on is the shower scene.
Yes.
After when he gets in the shower with what's her name and they're both fully clothed.
Yep.
In the script, she was in her underwear.
Yeah.
And he said to somebody, he was like, they're dealing with trauma and she's dealing with the scarring of like watching somebody die and the whole thing about blood on her hands and whatever. He was like, you're not stopping to think about I should take my clothes off.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so that was
I love that. I gotta watch this.
Daniel Craig, and it's a really great documentary.
Well, Daniel Craig is a fantastic human being. TV. Just saying.
Yeah. So to hear you say that, and I have to chuckle because when you talk about 2005 Casino Royale,
5th grade,
or 2006, and you're in 5th grade, I had been out of college for 5 years at this point.
Sure.
So generationally, that's another interesting aspect. Like I'm listening to both. Well, and I'm listening to both of you talk about quote unquote first Bond experiences.
Yeah,
you know, and yours are much more modern. Like you may have caught a Brosnan on TBS, or you may have caught you know Moonraker where he does the barrel roll with the car with the redneck version of Smokey and the Bandit.
Which Andrew, all of Moonraker was worth it just specifically for like what's the line towards the end where they're having sex in 0G. Like I think he's attempting re-entry or something, right?
Stupid. Exactly. That's the worst. No, wait. So I wanted to add to that. I'll never forget being in 5th grade watching that scene where he's getting his balls busted, and I literally go, well, that's why he can't have that's why none of the girls get pregnant. Literally, as a 5th grader, I knew. I was like, well, that's why like he can do all he has sex
when we
all
knew Scotty
he
was
wants.
destined to be a science teacher.
Yeah, literally. I'm like, it clicked. I was like, what? Oh, that makes sense now. Okay.
The best part of that is where he starts laughing and goes, "Now everyone's gonna know you died scratching my balls." That was the funniest. Oh my gosh, scene. That's the funniest thing.
I thought of this too when Nick was talking about it. It comes down to the fact that we may all have our own version of Bond because of how we grew up. And my brief little story was when I was watching Bond, obviously we had DVDs, but I usually used to use VHSs. My grandmother owned a retirement community, and this is no joke. One of the residents there, well, she managed one. When one of the residents died, they left a bunch of VHSs that the family didn't want, and all of them were Bond. So there were Dr. No, From Russia with Love. So I got a dead old man's collection of Bond films, and I never forget putting them in the VHS player and watching the 60s
haunted
ones.
Bond collection, if you will.
Literally, in the 70s ones and the 80s ones, and I was like, these were just such good movies to put on and like imagine and like think about. So all that being said, I was just handed a jar of pickles to open. Wow, I'm James Bond right now. Holy shit, I'm James Bond. Hold on. They can't see you.
Bond.
But I can pull it.
James Bond.
What are you sorry about?
Pickles. James Pickles.
You can't see.
Hi, Katie.
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 The world famous.
A rare Katie sighting.
Ooh.
And now Scotty's not going to get cramps because
now everyone's going to know you died opening a jar of pickles.
So look, while I brought it up, I want to hear your favorite Bond. Who is the one that embodies James Bond for you? I want to hear Nick, actually, because Nick's the one that seems to be in the. Oh, look, he's even in the garage. Oh my god!
I'm working on my DV5 right now. I'm trying to
fix it up.
I've managed to take this conversation from the roadside to Skyfall back to the garage. So
nice.
We're getting there. Favorite James Bond. This is. And it's kind of what I said a minute ago. It's kind of the idea of, is it nostalgia or is it like what I'm really drawn to? And if I go to what I'm really drawn to, it's Daniel Craig.
Okay.
Prior to Daniel Craig, I would have said Sean Connery in a heartbeat. I love Sean Connery's Bond. Moore would have been second behind Sean Connery. But these modern Bond films, and I said this off air, I may have even said it at the beginning of the movie, at the beginning of the movie, the beginning of the podcast.
Pretty much.
Basically.
If I sit down and I'm going to watch something, it's not often that I'm like, I really want to watch an old Bond movie. But the new Craig Bond movies are so compelling, and the storytelling to me is so good. So I hate to say realistic because
it's modern.
They're all interconnected to a point
it's
where
the
grounded
rest in more reality than. Again, when your Venetian canal boat turns into a hovercraft with tassels on it and goes through the middle of Venice, like they talk about Spectre in that documentary. They talk about Spectre and how Spectre is really the first of the modern James Bond movies that started to delve more into like the gadgets.
Yes, the
like
Q
the
aspect.
It was the Q aspect of it. Like, and I love the new Q. Ben Wisham.
Oh, he's great.
He's so great. The young,
fantastic.
Like that first scene when they sit in the art gallery and they have that first meet. Like all of it. It's fantastic.
A gun and a radio.
Yeah, exactly.
Look at you, Jerry.
So good.
Pretty good.
I just watched this today.
Really good.
I love it.
So my favorite James Bond, having a wide view of the entire canon, having grown up with it. Obviously, I wasn't there at the beginning, but I was born in '78, so I've had Bond for a really long time. My favorite Bond is Daniel Craig, for sure.
Okay. I think most of us, only because it's so recent, I think we'd all probably say the same answer. In terms of like right now, who is our favorite? I think Jerry, is that your response as well?
Craig is my favorite. Craig was my first.
Well, I get that.
Seriously, and I was in college too, Nick. Like I was it was my first year of towards the. Honestly, it was the beginning of my second year of college, I believe, because it came around November of 2006. Correct. So that was like my. I believe that was I was the beginning of my second year of college, and I just remember watching it and going, I get why people are drawn to this, and it was. It seemed like on the surface, James Bond, I think to some people, and the new one, and I remember like whenever I watched that, Nick, and you were talking about earlier how people were like, he's too blonde, he's too blah 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 blah. I remember a time when I would say that Craig was my favorite Bond, and people would be like, "Oh, really? Like, have you watched the Sean Connery ones? Have you watched this? Have you watched that and stuff? Like back in the day." Now it's like it seems like a lot of people a lot of people, even old Bond, like older, like, original Bond fans, people who have been around for a while, love Craig, love his take on it and everything. And like you, I love the interconnectedness of it. I shouted this out in your spiel, and I apologize, but like the interconnectedness of his films is kind of cool, where it's like there's kind of a through line. Whereas the old ones, you don't necessarily like. You can start wherever,
right?
You can start wherever. It's just a complete story, and each of his films are the same. They're a complete story. But if you watch them from Casino Royale, there is an arc that this character goes on, and I love that. And I don't know if we're doing favorite films. Or we're just doing favorite Bonds right now.
Yeah.
Okay. Then I'll keep that. And then again, second favorite is Roger Moore. Second favorite Roger Moore. That's all I gotta say.
Yeah, and I want to hit on something else that you said, which is with Craig, kind of that interconnectedness, that through line of, the movies connected to each other more than the older movies did. So you get like a bigger picture of a story. You get older aging Bond as we move through this whole thing, which makes me really intrigued with this new one. Like, how does his story wrap up? How do
literally,
all that kind of stuff, how does it come to a close? And within that, you were talking about, you're connecting to it, you were in college versus older Bonds, which were more like, oh yeah, I know those movies. Like there's a very decided dividing line between between those older ones and those newer ones. And then like Brosnan, Timothy Dalton, that stuff in the middle was kind of like, oh yeah, that was funny.
Yeah, literally.
Mm-hmm.
Well, see, that's the weird thing, too, because Daniel Craig is my favorite now. Roger Moore's my second, then Sean Connery behind it. Roger Moore kind of, like, exemplified the 80s and the 70s, though. Like, it was just so over the top, and, like, he was just so charming and just so, he played that role with such nuance, and I just enjoyed how much that Bond, like, would be kind of goofy. Like, it didn't take itself too seriously for once. Right. Whereas Sean Connery was a very serious actor. But whenever you look at Daniel Craig, it's the first Bond that I would say. Now, maybe Nick, you disagree with me. You seem like more of a expert on this, but to me, he was the first Bond to ever really get hurt and to see him go through trauma and to see a character that suffered. And he loved the girl that he was with. He wasn't trying to sleep with her the entire time, and he did occasionally, but it wasn't all lust. It was a lot of it was like, I want to heal you. I want to fix you. You're part of a bigger thing, and it's really cool.
It was almost like an explanation for why he's so detached later on. Frankly,
exactly. Because
he loved and lost, and then he's like, whatever. I'll just do it for the mission now.
So I was going to ask you that, Nick. You probably know more about this than we do, but the character himself. Now, Casino Royale, wasn't it a movie from the 60s?
Yes.
Yes,
it was. 1967.
I'm still confused about that, even as an adult.
In 67, there was a Casino Royale, and that was the one that starred David Niven. There have been 8 actors who have portrayed James Bond. The 6 we know: Sean Connery, Roger Moore, George Lazenby, Timothy Dalton, Pierce Brosnan, Daniel Craig.
Okay.
Those are the 6 we know. The other 2 that are less talked about, David Niven is one of them, and that was the 1967 Casino Royale. And then the other one was Barry Nelson in 1954. Barry Nelson in 1954 was a part of a television series, and I can't think of the name of it right now. I'm blanking on it. But it was essentially a television series that was attempting to float the possibility of could they do a James Bond TV series. So he played James Bond on TV, and it was like
54.
Yeah, in 54.
Holy cow!
So Casino Royale, the 67 version, and Andrew's right. It was the first book, but it was almost like a parody.
That's what I thought.
That's right. That's what
Dr. No was 62. Russia Was Love was 63. Goldfinger. And so here's another thing. 62, 63, 64, 65. You got a new James Bond movie 4 years in a row. They didn't go to every other year until 67. And that's when they started skipping a year. Because the first Casino Royale was kind of a parody. And it was this weird injection into the middle of the timeline and the canon and all this other kind of stuff. The reasoning, I don't remember what the reasoning behind all of that was, but you're right. There was a first Casino Royale that related to the first book that was ever written. And then they modernized it for the first Casino Royale Bond. What I want to say, kind of tagging on to what y'all were talking about with Bond, the Bond that gets hurt, the Bond that's emotional, to me, because I'm such a sucker for storytelling, that's why these movies are my favorite movies.
They work. Yeah,
because they're not a gimmicky spy movie.
Nope.
They're a good freaking movie.
They really
with the storytelling, with somebody who, like, I love that Casino Royale opens with him getting, I think it's the third kill in order to be a 00
status. Yeah.
Dang, I forgot how good that opening is.
That was a huge part of that.
Great opening.
And so this is the other thing. And we've talked about this for Star Wars, which is usually our normal arena.
Yes.
I love Luke Skywalker. I love Obi-Wan. Han Solo was always my favorite character because Han Solo, for the most part, was a normal dude. He didn't have superpowers, force powers, whatever it was. I find myself, and this is so dumb, and I can't believe I'm going to say this out loud on the internet.
Here we
as
go.
A
Get your receipts ready, kids.
Man, that's right. As a 43-year-old man, there are times when I watch, especially a modern James Bond movie, and go, he doesn't have superpower. I could do that. Like the opening of Casino Royale, of course I can't do all the parkour and run up a crane and chase that dude because that whole sequence is amazing. But like, and that's the other thing in that. So let's talk about that sequence for a minute. That parkour sequence that opens that movie is bananas. It's so good.
Insane.
And he's chasing that guy who is a world-renowned actual parkour person, whatever.
Yeah.
Wow.
And what you have is he's running through a construction zone, and what happens when Daniel Craig can't match that guy? He runs through the piece of plywood.
I was going to mention that. I was like, he runs through the wall, which was something that stood out to me.
He smashes through it.
Right.
Because he's a human, and his whole drive is the mission. His whole drive is the goal.
Yep.
And even if he gets beaten up and broken, and to me, that's what's so compelling, is he's not superhuman. He's not bulletproof. He's not... invincible, and also he's not emotionally invincible. He's got, he deals with Vesper, and that's a big part going through this whole thing, which I think is a callback to Tracy Bond and On Her Majesty's Secret Service, where he gets married and his wife is killed. And, it's this whole, like, there's a human being in there. There's a real person. And that makes that character 100% more compelling than the 60s and 70s versions, which were fun and cheeky, but we're more of a womanizer, and this always works out, and I don't get hurt, and I don't whatever.
He was the first one to get hurt and like get, like especially the part where he gets tortured at the very end, where he's getting his ball smashed in. I was sitting there watching that, going, "We've never seen this. We've never. When will we see more of this?" And as a kid, my prediction was right. I mean, I was in 5th grade. Then when the next one came out, I was in beginning of 7th grade. So I'm watching these movies and I'm thinking to myself, man, these movies are something special. And I was too young to realize it, but I knew that they were different and interesting, and they had never taken this route.
Yes, I want to shout out this comment that Nick just put in the chat that says M calls him a blunt instrument at one point, and that's such a good moment when she's talking about him, because the interplay between Judi Dench as M and Daniel Craig as James Bond is beyond crazy, and it's so incredible. Good. But because she's the one that's going to call him on his bullcrap, and she's the one that's going to be like, "I know you're sneaking into my house, and I know you're doing this, and I know you're doing that." But she also knows he's the best chance she has, because even if he's outside the line, even if he's rough around the edges, he's the real deal. And so when she calls him a blunt, like, that line always stands out to me. So I want to shout out Nick for calling that out, because that's legit.
Well, this one too. Also, Nick said this one earlier that I thought was particularly interesting, because this is which movie? Nick, you know the name of it. Nick Mielke, you know the name of it. What is the name of this movie?
It's I think it's Die Another Day.
Tomorrow Never Dies?
Die. Oh, yeah, because because it's the Madonna song. I guess I'll die another day.
Yeah, that's Madonna.
It's so weird and Y2K. But I agree with this. That was the one where you saw like Bond getting tortured by scorpions and shit. He's getting waterboarded. It's a pretty wild opening, but it did lead to the Craig aesthetic. That's a very interesting perspective. But so kind of going off the idea of why Craig's our favorite Bond. It's collective now that we've all discussed it. I want to talk about something a little bit different, because these movies have brought an interesting musical aspect to it. Now, Star
Yes.
Wars. Wow, I'm going to say Bond has always done that, especially since the first film, leading up to like some of the, I guess, the lesser desired ones. Like I don't like Diamonds Are Forever. I never liked the song. I hate how repetitive and annoying it is. But yeah, I just hate the melody. I'm not a fan of it. But I will say, the last 40 years since the 80s of James Bond songs have always been pretty consistent. Like A View to a Kill was the one I gravitated towards as a kid. The like
Duran Duran, baby.
Live and Let Die.
Down. Paul McCartney did a Bond
Wings.
movie.
Live and Let
So
Die.
down.
Shit, that's
Wings.
so good.
So sick. But does anyone have a favorite Bond
Then you got
theme?
the
Jerry?
frantic part. I'm sorry, the frantic part of Live and Let Die is fantastic. Ba-na-nat, ba-na-nat,
That was
ba-na.
sick.
I don't.
Jerry.
And then you get the Guns N' Roses version
Oh yeah,
later.
yeah, you do.
But Paul McCartney and Wings was the Video Kill version.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
I'm sorry, Paul McCartney and Wings always reminds me of role models. I always think of that guy like, Paul McCartney and Wings. We're gonna tell some ghost stories later. Okay, sorry.
Jerry, your favorite Bond theme and why?
I
think I know your answer.
I think it's because it part of it could be because it's my first one, but I also love. I think it captures perfectly the spirit of Bond in that he is this blunt instrument.
Oh my
but
god!
Not unfeeling, not cool. But I love Casino Royale's "You Know My Name."
Oh,
by Chris Cornell.
Chris Cornell.
There's no way you can beat that. Like this, it's like I'm trying to think of some lines from it too. But he's got the
it's got the cards.
1,000.
The cards.
Angels fall from blinding heights and stuff, like talking about like how women will fall for him. I love how it's like in the new Bond, it's more like they fall for him unless I'm gonna like womanize you and stuff like that. I mean, they've made it a little less about that.
Sure.
But also you've got the whole thing about like I've seen you 1,000 times too, about the guy who thinks he's gonna take me out, and like I just always end up killing you. So just another one to add to the. I love it's very like dark and melancholy a little bit. Like it's while being very like really cool and really I've seen angels fall from blinding heights, but just
extremely reflective of the time too.
But it's just
rock
like
was big.
Oh yeah, but I mean just like the whole thing about like how it's like that's Bond, but it's also very like this world that I'm in is not pretty.
It's not,
and it is like just like I don't. The whole second verse is fantastic, where he's like I'm gonna kill you too, like I've killed 1,000 of you before. It just doesn't feel like celebratory and stuff like that, right? Like that's the hallmark of Craig's Bond is he is that blunt instrument, but he's not unfeeling and stuff, and he's just very guarded. He's very like, I'm distant because I'm a cold-blooded killer. Yeah. For my country.
God, it's good.
And stuff like that.
Anyway,
I love that. I love that. Well, and second is Adele's Skyfall.
I'm going to talk about that one in particular in a second.
I'm going to let you talk about it, but Skyfall's opening is...
Nick, would you mind if...
Skyfall and all that... Oof.
I was going to say, Nick, do you mind if I go next? Because mine's the one that I think people least expect.
After you go, I'm going to regale you with kind of the long history of some of these songs. So
perfect. So mine is kind of odd, but I'll tell you the full story why. I was in 7th grade when Quantum of Solace came out. And like, for me, Star Wars had ended, and that was my next franchise that I was really hyped up on. Like, I played the games and everything. The one that I gravitated towards the most was Another Way to Die by Alicia Keys and Jack White, because Jack White had just come out with Icky Thump, and he had just did that last White Stripes album, and literally the sound of the guitar and the piano, it's a really weird. He used a lot of the Bond like motifs in his song, which is kind of not unheard of, but they usually don't stick to like the notes in the key that the Bond song is written in, which is the key of open E. I'm pretty sure it's like E. It's weird, but it's like E minor. But the reason I'm saying all that is because it's so weirdly done. It's not conventional, right? And I just think that song is so unique, and the collaboration of Jack White and Alicia Keys was so reflective of the times. Alicia Keys is going to come out with a big hit the next year with Jay-Z, New York, whatever that is. New York, that one.
Oh,
and
is
then
that the next year? Holy
Yes,
cow.
and then Jack White had just finished White Stripes, so he's doing his own stuff. And like, I remember being a kid watching that on VH1 Classic or VH1 whatever it was on on like the cable channels and being blown away by the video because it's just so sick. It's just so I'm getting so excited. But the reason I gravitate towards that one is because of the adolescence aspect. But the one that literally made me cry in high school and it changed my life was Skyfall by Adele, because she was so popular and they gave her the perfect song in the final chord. I'm not joking. If I heard it right now, I'd weep because it's so
it's beautiful.
It encapsulates everything Bond, and it always has. When I was 17, listening to that song, I'm like, this honestly makes the most sense. She took the 60s feel of a song, but she injected that like a modern day. Oh my God, it's amazing.
She's so like
damn
like
good.
Like right before that, like she was like, I had just gotten into Adele because of like Rolling in the Deep and stuff.
Yes,
a big song and everything, but just like to go back to that, she harkened back to that time in music where it was just like there was something like folk was coming back hardcore back then and everything, but to have like we're going back to like that really 60s feel. That was the 50th of Bond, wasn't it?
Yes.
That was a big year, and that was the perfect. They couldn't have chose anyone better.
They really couldn't.
I'm saying that right. They couldn't have chose anyone better than Adele to do that, because that song, seriously. And again, I love the Chris Cornell one, but Adele is like, I listen to that one just as much. Like I listen to those songs as soon as they come out, like over
on repeat,
over
Same,
and over again. Have we released that? Because they were supposed to release the new Bond.
It's not out. I haven't heard it yet.
Oh wait, I thought they released it a long time ago. I haven't.
They might have.
I haven't heard it.
It's been around. Let me see. Hold on. With that being said,
I haven't listened to it a ton, but
if you don't mind, I want to hear. I want to hear your I guess your monologue on the Bond films, if you don't mind.
We don't have to make it a monologue, but I just wanted to point out some of course, over the history of it, we've talked about so much of the modern Bond themes. Kind of the original was the John Barry Orchestra, which is that very orchestral early From Russia with Love, Dr. No, Majesty's Secret Service, like some of those old early Bond movies had that. You mentioned, I think, Diamonds Are Forever. Is that the one that you mentioned that you didn't like as much, Scotty?
Yeah. Yeah.
Shirley Bassey did Goldfinger, Diamonds Are Forever, and Moonraker. So she did multiple ones in the 60s, early 70s. But if we look for big names, because that did become a thing, Thunderball was Tom Jones in 1965. You Only Live Twice was Nancy Sinatra in 1967.
Oh, wow.
Live and Let Die was Wings in 73. Andrew has shouted this out in a couple of times in the chat. Spy Who Loved Me, Carly Simon. What else do we have? Duran Duran, View to a Kill. That was a big one. Living Daylights in 87. That was Aha. So all you Take on Me fans, you got a Bond movie. Gladys Knight did License to Kill. Tina Turner did GoldenEye. Tomorrow Never Dies, Sheryl Crow. Garbage, somebody in the chat, I think Nick said that in the chat. World Is Not Enough was Garbage, Shirley Manson. Madonna did Die Another Day. And then you've got Chris Cornell, Jack White, Adele. Honestly, I think a little bit underrated is the Spectre Sam Smith song. That one's really good.
I haven't listened to it in a ton in a minute.
I listened to it this afternoon.
Yeah,
and
I'm about to get my Bond playlist going. Frankly,
get you a Bond Spotify list.
I'm getting it going because I do when one of the movies come out.
And so that was another big cultural deal, like who gets tapped to do it. And I think a couple of weeks ago, kind of in the hype leading up to No Time to Die, somebody had put on Twitter, just kind of playing the game, the question, who would you want to do a Bond theme? So I'm going to pose that to the both of you. Who would you pick if you could pick somebody to do a Bond theme? Who would you pick? Jerry, you're up.
I like that.
Well, just real quick, Billie Eilish's song is available. No Time to Die.
Okay.
Yeah, it's been on there since a year ago, if I'm not mistaken.
Well,
I'm
yeah,
old
because it
and
was
behind
supposed to
on
release.
music, so it's
COVID messed everything up.
Yeah,
COVID messed everything up. Take your vaccine, kids.
21st. March 21st.
Oh, hell. We're getting James Bond third act. We're getting third act James Bond with Nick
I
right
felt
now.
it was important for people to know this wasn't a clip on.
No, because you're
That
more of a
is-
man than that.
No,
Also,
you're
fun
bullshit.
fact.
You're a Bond. You're a Bond.
Never tied a bow tie in my life until preparing for this show tonight.
No way. I love that.
I still have it.
Go ahead.
I
Jerry,
do all
who's
clip-ons.
gonna-
Proud.
Jerry,
I'm proud.
who's going to do your Bond theme?
Man, if I have to pick someone for a Bond theme that hasn't done one yet, my goodness. This is really hard. This is really hard because I don't know if I've really even thought about this.
Well, because
everything.
there's a certain theatricality that goes with a Bond song.
You have to have a little bit of that Bondness in it. Like you could have the
depends on the movie.
a little like in it. Subtle.
While you think about it, I think my answer, and of course this show's biased to my favorite music artist, I really want Dave Grohl to have a Bond song.
Yeah,
oh my Lord.
I think Dave Grohl is one of the most brilliant musical artists that we have. Foo Fighters is my favorite band of all time. I think he could do some cool shit along the lines of a Chris Cornell with a Bond theme. I'd love to see Dave Grohl have a crack at that. Scotty, what about you?
Kiss. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just completely kidding. Well, James Bond!
I want to spy all night.
So, and that's what it would be. No.
Party every day.
Wow. That's a really good question, only because it takes, and it's obviously important to the movie that it reflects, and the time it came out. So if I had to choose right now, I mean, Billie Eilish is a damn good choice because she's relevant.
It's a great choice.
But in terms of my preferred Bond artist to make a song, look, and this is gonna be controversial, only because it would have been cool. Probably would have been too much. I would have loved to have heard a Pink Floyd James Bond song. Because they were really good at writing to a theme and to a concept. So they would have done that well. I mean, there's bands that can't do it. Like I would hate to hear Steven Tyler. Besides, he did I Don't Want to Miss a Thing, which could honestly, if Bond was a more sweeter character, that could be a Bond theme within itself. It's horns, it's like builds really well. But it was too bad it was Armageddon's. But yeah, I think Floyd could have done a really sick one in the 70s.
I said the same thing with The Who.
The Who could have done a good one.
The Who was very theatrical. They could have done some version of
Eurythmics could have done one when they were really big, like kind of synth wavy. But like
especially like an 80s Bond.
Yes. They have to be respectable though. That's the problem. It's got to be someone like look, and this is going to sound real. Well, maybe not. Maybe I'm wrong. But like, I don't know if I don't know if I could enjoy a rap song for a Bond character unless it was done in a way that made sense. I just don't see.
Jay-Z could have done it. That
you know
was my
what?
answer.
Now Jay-Z.
You know who I want? You know who I want then? Childish Gambino.
Now wait, that makes sense. But he's good. Pretty melodic when he raps though too.
I think it could work. Like there's some things you could do that are effing fantastic, man.
Sure.
I mean, come on.
I agree with that.
The only thing other than that, one thing that did pop into mind, they've been around for a while, but Chris Martin from Coldplay.
Coldplay
would probably do a pretty awesome Bond theme, I think. I love I think his voice would be interesting to have in there. I know a lot of people don't like Coldplay, but I'm down with the Coldplay.
Nick, I can't hear you for some reason. But I think who could have done one if they had given the time to do it, like, I don't know. Unfortunately, he's gone. But I would have loved to have heard.
If Gautier lasted longer than a month, he probably could have done one.
Oh, yes, I would say Prince could have had.
I'm looking through my iTunes right now.
Prince could have been a good one.
Prince could have been a good one because Prince has the sex appeal, but it would have been probably too much.
Can Blink 182 do one? They've been real hot recently.
Look at this. Wait, where's
Travis Barker
Andrew,
especially?
Andrew literally said in the chat. I don't know if you saw that. That's dead serious what he said.
Boom.
Almost.
Smash me. You know me too.
No
well.
Smash
Mouth.
Smash Mouth. Sorry.
Somebody once told me I was gonna save the world. I have a bunch of sex and I'm cool.
The weekend would have been sick. sick.
Ooh,
That's not
okay,
bad.
okay. You know,
Man,
someone I thought was Dua Lipa as well too. Dua Lipa would probably she's pretty fantastic. I love her stuff.
So
Hosier.
In terms, that's not bad either.
Hosier?
Yeah.
He's got the I'll shop, take me to church. I'll shop in my knife. Hell yeah.
Kind of epic. It has to sound big for most part.
Imagine Dragons, maybe. I don't really know. I don't really care for Imagine Dragons, but
too motivational.
Jim Gaffigan, Jason Mraz. I'm just naming stuff that I'm seeing in my iTunes at this point.
The next thing
Jason Mraz. Hey, 007.
We already kind of talked about Daniel Craig in total. I don't know if you want to address anything else, Nick, because I know this is kind of your bread and butter right now. But anything else you want to say about Daniel Craig in particular, kind of as a tribute to his last installment?
I think
is weird,
and that was the biggest thing with the documentary and talking about, oh, hey Daniel, how you doing? In the documentary, that was a lot of the focus of it. Is it starts out with the doubters, the people who said, we don't know, the delays, the writer strikes, there's a lot that happened over the course of his time as being Bond. We talked about going from 2005 to 2021, like that's a long period of time for this kind of role, that tends to change hands every 5 to 8 years or whatever it is.
Sure.
And so in that, it really is just neat to see an actor's journey, because he had been in stuff before Bond, but his reputation prior to Bond was kind of more quirky, nerdy roles and vibes. And so that was part of the controversy when they picked him, the skinny blonde dude. And of course, when they do that big press event where he comes up the Thames and he's wearing a life jacket, and that was the big controversy. Like, James Bond doesn't wear a life jacket.
So crazy.
He had to, because the actual real life British Navy was like, you don't get on this boat unless you wear the jacket. So they did it.
Yeah, just give him
he
a
gets
break,
up
guys.
there, and that's the big, first thing. And then, but that's like a year or more before this movie comes out. Then he hits the gym. That's when he puts the work in. That's when all the things happen. And then that paparazzi photo drops and everybody's like, oh, holy crap, this might actually be a thing. And then he's off and he gets the buy-in. But there's so much interesting stuff. And I keep hitting on that documentary. And I guess I'm their new favorite publicist. If you watch it, you go from Casino Royale to Quantum of Solace. If you look at all the new Bond movies, Quantum of Solace is everybody's least favorite for a reason. They started shooting that movie without a script because the writer's strike was going on. So
they're doing that.
They're doing coverage shots. They're doing all this other stuff.
Was that long ago?
Yeah,
absolutely. Cow.
07, 08.
Quantum of Solace came out in 08. So they shot it in like 06, 07.
Good God. Wow.
So the reason it feels disjointed is because of the things that were going on in the movie industry at that time.
Holy cow.
But they overcame it, and I think you go back and you watch it, and there's those details that we talked about. You talked about the through line, Scotty, of what leads you from one movie to the next.
It's nuts.
So you have Quantum of Solace, which then leads you to Skyfall.
And
I can do an entire episode about Skyfall. That's not why you brought me here.
So wait, that actually leads to a good idea. I want to say, we haven't talked about your favorite Bond films yet, or anyone's favorite Bond films. So I think we can all agree, and I think Jerry is under the same belief. Is it Skyfall or Casino Royale for you, Jerry?
Skyfall.
It's Skyfall.
Wait. Can I tell my brief story with Skyfall?
Please.
It's one of the few movies. I was in high school. I saw it. I maybe saw it by myself when I first started driving. But it was the movie, okay? And I've talked to Eric about this several times because he told me the movie that made him realize that maybe movie making is his passion was Pulp Fiction, which I think a lot of us could say the same too, where you realize movies were a certain way until you watched one movie, you go, wait a minute, I get the art of filmmaking. And it was when I saw Skyfall in theaters and that house was on fire and he was walking away from it, Javier Bardem was walking away from it, and you saw the cinematography of it, and you know where M is at, and you literally, I might tear up because that was 100% the movie that literally changed everything.
And And I said it before we
sitting
came
there.
on. Albert Finney in that last half of that movie,
God, it's so
like
good.
the groundskeeper and Master Bond and like the grave and Andrew Bond, his dad, and like the whole, like everything about it.
Jesus.
It's just, and I want to point out too, Andrew said, and this connects with what we were talking about with Quantum of Solace. Quantum of Solace was the only Bond film that seemed like a sequel because it literally picks up. We talked, Jerry
right
talked about
after.
earlier on the steps at the end of Casino
Picks it
Royale.
up there.
Shoots the dude in the knee. That's where Quantum of Solace jumps off, and that's where we're going from there. And that wasn't normal for Bond films.
Not at all. And like to have Skyfall then connect in a trilogy of ways was insane. And you're watching this movie and like it looked different, it felt different than most Bonds, and for once there was two main characters. It wasn't just Bond. It was a lot about M's journey, and the fact that we had
and that's what I love.
Dame Judi Dench.
It was a mother and
role.
son film.
And,
okay,
so let's go back to this. Let's go back to Casino Royale. Let's talk about the introduction of Judi Dench as M.
Yes,
and I'm going to get the quote wrong. I know I'm going to
Gold member. Damn it, Gold.
Yeah, you're right.
Goldeneye.
I'm messing all this
that's
up.
Right.
Sorry.
Yeah, Goldeneye. Gold member. That's a whole other. That's Austin Powers.
She might have been. Who knows?
But so in Casino Royale, when we get that good big first M moment, and I'm not going to get the quote right, but she makes the comment about maybe I'm the one that has the balls to make this decision.
Yes,
like, I was 100% in the tank for M in that moment right there because it was so. You're right. So in Skyfall, M's journey is as much a part of it.
It's
with
weird.
Bond. She has a soft spot for Bond. It's obvious, and it develops over the course of this, and we get the sacrifice and we get her coming out of that movie, but it's so significant because it goes back to what you talked about. Daniel Craig's James Bond is a human with emotions. He suffers the loss of that character, and when you get to the end and he gets the box from Moneypenny on the roof and it's got the stupid ugly bulldog in it that they made the joke about, like those things were significant to that storytelling and makes it that much more powerful. The other thing, and this is what I was going to point out about Skyfall, especially for people my age or people who had a lot more connection to older Bond movies, Skyfall was the movie that started to make some little transitions and nods towards old stuff, like the old BB5 that's in that garage that he drives up to Skyfall. Like there were those things that made it go, oh, there is a nod towards it. We wanted to do it in a way that didn't feel forced or too awkward.
Right, but yet they still had he handed like the envelope to the guys like for her eyes only, and stuff, kind of things like that. One thing I'll tell you, Skyfall cemented what I love about Bond, and it's a thing that's in the trailer. It's everything, like you said, it's the human aspect of Bond, but it's the unmitigated coolness that this man has. Like the scene, the chase sequence at the beginning where he's like in the but one of my favorite things, it feels like it shouldn't be so cool, but when he's in the bulldozer blocking the bullets and stuff, and like he has to like
on the train
put the thing. Yeah, he uncouples the car. He has to like do the thing, and like he climbs over the thing, jumps down right as it pulls the wall away, and fixes his cufflink as he lands.
So badass.
That is one of that sticks in my mind forever. I saw that in the trailer, and I was like, I need to see this movie.
That's the other nod to the old, unflappable, invincible, unmust Bond.
Yep.
I love talking about Casino Royale and kind of making those nods. The conversation between Bond and what's her name on the train on their way to Monte Carlo for Casino Royale.
Yeah.
And she's talking about suits and how he needs like the sartorial nature of like, you don't dress right and you don't this and you don't that. And like, we're unpacking the character of how he ends up being Bond. We get the Felix Leiter stuff. We get him when he's frustrated and he goes to the bar and he orders a martini and the bartender says shaken or stirred. And he says, I could give a damn. Like that flips up the old school martini shaken, not stirred. And makes him human. I don't give a shit how you make it. Just give me the booze. Like, let's go.
Yeah. It's just such a special movie and character. Like these past Craig films are hopefully something we can all look back and remember fondly, because they didn't they didn't really do anything that was too risque. They didn't do anything that was too racist or too sexist for once. And usually they gave the woman a much bigger role than just something he slept with. I mean, that's what we're used to in Bond films. And the fact that we got really strong female characters, and it appears that in No Time to Die, we're going to have 2 really strong female characters.
Well, Moneypenny's still in, right? Like,
yes,
Moneypenny's still
I haven't
there.
seen,
So I want to ask this.
Strong recasting of Moneypenny, by the way. Oh, my Lord.
Yeah, I get that. Amazing.
Fantastic.
So I want to ask you this, because this is kind of controversial, but in terms of James Bond, would you want it to end here? Or do you want to see maybe someone that was of African-American descent, or maybe a woman or another white guy play James Bond? I mean this because it's hot. It's a hot topic because Daniel Craig himself says, I don't want a woman playing the character because a woman could do a better job in a different role, as a different character in a different franchise. Don't make her.
Well, we kind of have. He's meeting another 00 in this that is a woman.
Sure,
correct?
But
which could be a character coming up down the line.
Which
I like that sentiment and stuff. But
for a while they said Idris Elba. I'm like, that's literally the best choice.
Had this been a couple years ago,
Right.
that was my choice. And it, honestly, still, I kind of still want Idris Elba, but I know he's.
Well, age
not that
becomes
he's too old.
Factor. No, he's not too old. But it becomes, okay, is he going to do one now and be done? Or is he going to be able to do one now and do 3 or 4 more?
Literally.
Which becomes 8 or 10 years. That's where it becomes the issue of age.
Yeah, because it's not every 2. It's not every 2 or even every 3 years. It's how long has it been since Spectre came out?
Well,
right. Well, I mean, we had the pandemic and stuff.
I would say
that.
Pandemic actually affected the release of No Time to Die, and so that was a part of the big delay.
Ago.
Because here's the thing, and this is huge: Spectre came out in 2015. No Time to Die is going to come out in 2021.
Mm-hmm.
That's a 6-year gap for something that normally went 2 to 3 years at the most.
Sure,
like, that's an unprecedented, huge gap.
Yeah.
I'll say, and that maybe this is my hot take. If you had a hot take button, you'd use it right here. I'm not entirely sure I wouldn't be fine with Bond being done after this movie, period. Because it's 25. That's a good number. That's a good, they did 25 movies.
That's great.
Craig, to me, is pinnacle, peak Bond, peak, character, storytelling, all that kind of stuff. I don't know that they'll do that because, money making is a thing. I don't fault them for that. And I won't be mad because they're going to end up picking somebody. I'm like, oh, let's see this version of it.
Sure,
let's
of course.
These other things. But if this movie ended somehow with, and it maybe even it's not in the movie, Bond goes off to a happy ending, Bond gets killed, we don't know what's going to happen. But we found out after the fact, and in the documentary, they don't say it.
I hope they don't.
But there are some conversational moments where you could almost hear them going, yeah, they could find a way to be done. They could find a way to live off royalties and, every time it gets replayed on TBS or whatever the other thing is. So I don't want it, but I would respect it if that was the choice they made.
Right.
William had a good remark. Look at this. He said they really should give another movie series of another character in the Bond series. They could do what Star Wars is doing, where they have spin-offs of certain things, right?
Yeah.
So movie. Let's go.
Yeah, whatever. Like
Branch,
that would
Follow
be
Moneypenny,
dope.
something. Yeah.
So this is interesting. I mean, even if the end, even if they ended here, it will get rebooted again, which is always the case.
Oh yeah,
it's just
it's
part
not,
of unfortunately
it's not going
the cycle.
Away. It makes it makes too much money.
But if they did a female, I'm not against the concept of it, but would it be James Bond? Like, would it be the name James Bond? Probably not, unless this person,
it would be 007 because the number seemed to be separate from the name.
Right. Yes.
Yeah.
Which should they continue this? Like, should they the next person? Should it be like we're starting over, or should it be, this is the person taking up the mantle of James Bond and stuff, right? Like this, they're taking up 007. It's interesting. I do have someone who I saw someone on Twitter say this, and I kind of like this pick because I like this person. He's a very charismatic person on Twitter. But Raul
Pete Fletcher,
Kaloe, Raul Kauli.
Okay.
From if you know Midnight Mass and The Haunting of Bly Manor, and he's
And
also he's a big Star Wars fan.
wannabe Ezra Bridger.
Yes.
He's too old to be Ezra, but I wanted him to be Ezra.
He would make a fantastic, because he is very charming and stuff. Like, I think he would do a fantastic Bond.
Sure,
and
of
stuff.
course.
That would be very interesting to have someone I just think that would be an interesting choice. He's got the chops, he's got all that stuff, he's got the charisma and all of that. And I saw someone say that, and I just want all the world for him because he's effing hysterical. On Twitter. He seems like just a really cool person too. So
well, and it also connects to something that we've seen before, because while of course Bond films have direct connections to American filmmaking and that kind of stuff, the kind of pseudo Americanized version of that we got for a while was the Bourne films.
Yeah, it's true.
Which I heard a lot of people saying, "Oh, new Bond is just trying to be Bourne."
And I love
I heard
the
a lot
Bourne
of that
movies,
back in
and
the
I
day.
love the what's his name Bourne movie that Matt Damon's not in, that Hawkeye's in. Like, that's a good movie.
Oh yeah.
I love those movies, but you have that like somebody said, the opportunity to reboot it. What I would hope they would do if they do go to another Bond, which likely they will do, my hope is they stay on the track they're on. Some realism, make it compelling storytelling more than kitschy plot devices and winky, like that thing had its era. What drives me and wants to make me watch these movies over again is going, that's a great story. Cinematographically, it looked good. We talked about before, I sent this in the group text to y'all this afternoon, the cheesy, like, weird moments in Bond movies where they blow Kananga up like a balloon and he explodes. The pigeon does a double take. The barrel roll with the card, they straight up put a slide whistle in the middle. Like, Bond has had its weird cheese ball moments.
Of course, the Phantom Menace.
But what I love now in these Bonds, and if they're going to continue forward, is I would love for it to follow that more realism, real world. Because this is the other thing. Like I said, I mentioned it earlier. I watch these movies and I have moments of going, I could do that. I could hide behind a brick wall and run and dodge and whatever. I can't. I'd get shot immediately. Right. It's like,
still,
it's like watching a casino movie or a gambling movie. Those people win money. I go to the casino and I'm done in 5 minutes because my money's.
But like you said, your car doesn't make a slide whistle sound when it's going through a tunnel or something.
Not yet.
Oh, right.
So yeah. So if we're gonna get a new Bond, I'm less concerned about who it would be, and more concerned and hopeful for how it's done. Absolutely.
Sure.
Right.
I respect that too.
I've heard this. I'm sorry. Nick's got a great fan theory.
Well, that's
here,
in Skyfall,
which is something that. Well, that not necessarily. I don't think it isn't like specifically said, right? But it is.
I always thought it was more the numbers than the name.
It is something. Well, right. But this is something
because
that
James
I had a
Bond's
friend.
dad was Andrew Bond.
Yeah,
but double O's can change if well,
it's
maybe.
Since
whoever Red 5 was
Bond,
that Luke became after, there was a Red 5 in Rogue One, he got blown up, which gave the room for Luke to be Red 5 in Star Wars.
Which you don't have to pass the name, but maybe we'll see how No Time to Die ends. Maybe it becomes like this person takes the moniker of James Bond in honor of James Bond, right? Like maybe he passes away. It's No Time to Die, but maybe he dies. Or maybe he goes away or something. But like they, in honor of him, they're like, no, we're going to use this as a code name Bond.
Sure.
And things like that. So you take that name and go off and that's almost like a Batman thing if it strikes fear.
Yeah.
Into people, because it seems like that's a name that's kind of floated amongst all of these
agents,
really rich, really crazy, weird villains and stuff that, want to do weird things.
Well, we kind of, in terms of what I've written down, we kind of came to a conclusion of our discussion. But Nick, I think you did some more research. Is there anything else you want to address before we end this stream? Anything that you want to go off your chest besides the fact that we're all seeing it next week at some point?
Yes,
it's very exciting.
And I feel like this is significant. And I think I said this in one of our group texts earlier. I know Venom is coming out. A lot of people are going to see Venom tonight. I'm excited for the people. It's kind of like when Andy talks about on Holo Chronicles enjoying something in somebody else's collection. Like,
exactly,
I'm excited for y'all to go see Venom. I don't have an issue with Venom, but the state of my life with 4 kids, a wife, a job, all the things I have,
is it necessary?
if I'm going to the movies, it's going to be a Star Wars, a major Marvel movie, or James Bond. Like, I'm not getting out of the like Many Saints of Newark, which is tomorrow. I'm jacked about because it's going to be on HBO Max, and I don't have to leave my house.
I was going to say the same thing.
But I will be leaving the house to go see No Time to Die. Like, I can't wait to go see that movie. All that. So as far as other things, we've kind of hit on all of it. I think it's funny that in 1983 they remade Thunderball as Never Say Never Again.
Oh, weird.
Because of the legal issue that happened with Thunderball and the guy that wrote it, and he basically won a court case against the Broccoli's so that he could have the rights to the movie. So Sean Connery is in that as a reboot, but it doesn't necessarily fit within the normal Bond canon. The other thing that I had written down, because this is very Bond and it also feels a little bit Bombad, do we want to talk Bond girl names for just a minute? Because that is kind of significant.
Heck yeah.
That's very Bombad. That is
Jerry,
very Bombad.
what is your favorite Bond girl name?
Well, I mean, if it's Pussy Galore is like it's one that sticks out in everyone's mind and everything.
But he says anything other than that.
I think something like I say, like the Christmas one is the one that I brought up earlier,
Christmas
where
Jones.
I was like Christmas Jones, because then later on they make the joke of Christmas came early. Which really, I mean, this really gets into like, the essentials of a Bond film. Like you have to have a little bit of that, like maybe not so like womanizer as it was back in the day and everything, and maybe not as they may not name
quite so misogynistic.
They're not naming the characters. They're not naming the characters. Like snatch pussy or anything anymore.
Octopussy.
Yep.
They're naming them. They
actually
have actual names now, like Vesper and things
I'll
like that.
just run. How about this? To save you incriminating yourselves, I'll just run down the ones that were listed
Run down the list.
on the internet as the top Bond girl names.
Please.
Obviously, we have Pussy Galore. That's number one. That's just innuendo for days. Honey Rider. That's a pretty, that was Dr. No. That was the first Bond movie. That was started to set the precedent. And You Only Live Twice, Kissy Suzuki. And this is the thing. They're not always necessarily dirty. Sometimes they're just silly and a little bit racist. Like Kissy Suzuki. Like, because this is the movie, lest we forget, You Only Live Twice. You Only Live Twice is the movie where James Bond undergoes plastic surgery to look like a Japanese person.
Yes.
It's
very normal.
It's tough.
No
it's
go.
Awkward. It doesn't age well.
No go, guys. No go.
In Moonraker, we have Holly Goodhead. Yeah.
Wait, what was that one again? I'm sorry, I got distracted in chat.
Holly Goodhead.
Holly Goodhead. That's not on the nose at all.
Yeah, not at all. Of course, in World Is Not Enough, we do have Christmas Jones.
Yes.
We have Octopussy in the movie Octopussy, and then in GoldenEye, we have Xenia Onatopp. So
it's like Pablo Hidalgo made these names. It's like Star Wars characters that are just like so obscure.
It's almost like
it's pretty legit.
Austin Powers wasn't even like trying.
I know
with some of these.
Machine
it's like they were
just,
Avana Fakalat, things like that. Like
that's
all
really all I have. All I have is
spook me.
Yeah, that's really all I have. My whole thing is I love James Bond. I grew up with James Bond, and it really has been a very interesting evolutionary journey from the early 60s films, which were, again, reflective of the times. There was a lot more diversity than you saw in a lot of places. There were some elements of, somebody mentioned it earlier in the top of the show. In the 90s or early 2000s, we have Pierce Brosnan captured in North Korea before North Korea was a thing. Like, there have been some worldwide connecting kind of moments with all of this other stuff. But it really is one of those things that as it develops and we get this modern Bond, it just shows that it's a product and an IP that can last and can evolve. And I have to think that a lot of that is attributed to the Broccoli family. Sure. And, the people that stayed in, they could have sold it years ago. They could have said, hey, Paramount, it's all yours. Sony, it's all yours. Highest bidder. but they've stayed connected. And that's the other thing. I've said it too many times tonight in this documentary on Apple TV Plus. You know, a lot of the conversations are between the Broccoli's and Daniel Craig, and the Broccoli's and, you know, the people that produce it, because they are connected to it, you know, and Barbara Broccoli and, you know, the sons and the daughters and whoever it is that's in it now. It's something that really does hold up, surprisingly, when you look back at where it started. You look at where it is and you go, I don't think this is going to age well, but I think it's aged remarkably well. And that's part of why, like, it's really interesting to me, and this is a very personal soapbox moment. It's really interesting to me that tomorrow I get Many Saints of Newark, which is the prequel to The Sopranos. The Sopranos is on my Mount Rushmore of TV shows. I watch The Sopranos once or twice a year, top to bottom. I've probably seen The Sopranos 15 times at this point. Like, I love that show. It's as good as any. It's as good as anything you can watch on TV. I'm telling you right now. Believing. So to get that in a movie prequel version, and also to get this last chapter of a Daniel Craig James Bond coming next week, like, it's really dumb to say, like, I kind of almost get emotional thinking about it's a story and a movie grouping within this franchise that I absolutely adore. That's really what it comes down to. Like, I adore these modern Bond films, and I grew up with the other ones, but these are the ones that I go, this is when they got it right.
They did, in every way too. It just there's something to be said about these most recent movies that I think we've obviously said here, but in terms of how it changed and evolved over the past 15 years, and 15 years is a long time to play one character. It's more than everyone else. Like, I know Luke. Mark Hamill played Luke for the past 40 years, but same exact time, it's not consistent. I mean, Daniel Craig has consistently played this character and dealt with the drama that came from it. Not as consistently,
right?
Yeah, just
for 16 years.
It's nuts, and I'm just happy that there is a finality to it, and I'm happy that maybe we'll get some answers to some questions we've always wondered.
Can't wait to find out how they're going to wrap it up.
I know, and it's a wrap up, and I think that's something very rare in cinema nowadays. Usually, most movies don't wrap up. Like, Rise of Skywalker wrapped it up, but it also left an open door of Rey Skywalker, where you're like, oh,
sure,
okay. So there's not really an ending to this. And there's
one thing too. And that's what we know about Bond. Bond could pick up again with a new actor, and it doesn't have to be connected to these 5 movies.
Nope.
They can they do what they want, and it depends on the director. It depends on, all those different bits. But
make it feel completely different from this era.
Yeah.
Right? Like you're saying, like all the eras feel slightly different and everything. Like, make this era feel different from the Craig era and stuff. Yeah.
I'm just happy.
Story.
Well, I think it comes down to the fact that it's just such it had been very beautifully done these past 5 movies. And that's kind of hard to do that every time. Like when they made the villain from Quantum of Solace drink motor oil. They're like, we found his stomach was filled with motor oil or whatever it was. I'm like, that's just nuts. Like they did the villains great in these past movies. They did so many things just so well done. Like nothing. There really wasn't a scene in these movies that I rolled my eyes at. Like, okay, come on.
I'm gonna go ahead and tell you, as soon as this stream's over with, I'm gonna spend $100 on iTunes and buy these movies so I can watch them.
Nick,
it happened. That's all we were doing.
We need the login.
It's time to reveal. We've been working for tonight. iTunes. Actually, right. we are sponsored.
Congratulations, Apple! It worked.
So, real quick, I will say one thing I'm happy to share. I will be seeing Skyfall this Sunday in theaters because they're doing it at AMC. So if you have a local AMC, they're doing Skyfall. So I'm going to be there seeing that.
Damn busy.
I know. I'm. Trust me. This is like been literally like pulling teeth to make sure I can do this. But
and then to turn around and do No Time to Die next week. You're the man.
I'm very happy.
That is fantastic.
All I can say is I'm very happy we discussed this because it's a movie that it's a series I'm very happy that I grew up watching and that it's part of my life.
Absolutely.
And it's just so awesome to know that we have a great story on our way. But Nick, you have a podcast, right? You can plug a podcast. I've been on it one time.
We can't
Jerry's been on
talk
it.
anymore about this. I'm sorry, but I love this take by Nick here. Like, sorry, I'll pull it away there.
Yeah, no, it's a great take.
That'd be badass, actually.
Podcast. Yes, I do have a podcast. In fact, hang on, hold that thought. Let's see what we can do here.
Brothers, hold.
Let's go with this. How's that
sound? I love it. A little visions action.
Podcast of the Wills, Sunday nights, 8 p.m. Central. We are the podcast that treats Star Wars like a sacred text. We are currently halfway through a 6-week series on The Empire Strikes Back. We have broken it down into categories. We are using, as I say all the time, it's a Bible study, but instead of the Bible, we're using Star Wars. That's the text we're going with. And so this week, the category or the theme is betrayal. We're at Bespin at this point in Empire Strikes Back. Cool. And my guest is the fabulous Raven from Sisters with Sabers.
Nice. My boo.
Force Connect. One of my favorite people in the Star Wars podcasting community.
She's the best.
Raven's going to be on with me to talk about attractive
too.
And so I would love for y'all to come hang out live Sunday night at 8:00.
My boy, look at Nick with the good plug.
Seriously,
you're wonderful, baby.
go
That
check
wink
that
was
out,
pretty
guys.
sexy.
Hey,
his name is
speaking
Milky.
of plugs,
Nick Milky. Okay,
y'all are going to do this too, but.
Yeah, baby.
Look at
my
it. The
God.
community gives back. Speaking of favorite podcasters and things like that.
So November
hit it
6th. You see that? Look, Jerry actually's got some good news. Jerry is actually going to be able to really contribute as well.
I'm there. I'm going to be there.
It was up in the air. It was up in the air for a moment. But Podathon, November 6th, 2021, 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. We've got a bunch of shows. Pete and I will be hosting it from our pages. So this page will host it. Around the Galaxy's page will host it. It's for Make-A-Wish. We've got a huge I can't announce who Tarkin's top shelf is yet, but we were notified that they do have a pretty big guest coming on in the Star Wars.
We need to hear about that off air.
As it stands right now, Podcast of the Wills has a pretty big guest as well.
Yeah. So it appears that every show is going to be bringing the bacon, and I won't make the comment I made last time.
That's right.
But I'm very happy to say, Jerry knows what I'm talking about.
We will have kosher bacon as well. We will have kosher available for our Jewish viewers.
We got Target's Top Shelf, Tatooine Sun, Star Wars Explained, Imperial Senate Podcast of the Wills with Nick. You've got Blue Bantha with their own AI story. That's something I can announce here too. I think Jerry and I will both have small parts in it. I don't know if I know that for a fact yet, but I think it's possible. Hala Chronicles will be doing.
We are like literally. I will be a gun turret.
Like
I don't give a shit what I am.
Like the rest of us,
I'll go
you're begging for a role in a Blue Bantha Milk production.
Literally.
I have been so I will casting couch this thing if I have to.
I will decide I've made
I will casting couch
I will
this
decide
thing.
I've made it if I get a role.
I got knee pads. It's all good. It's all good.
Oh, wait a minute. This took a turn.
Sorry. This took a turn. Well, you know.
We got Brian.
Everyone's going to know you died scratching my balls.
We got Brian with Pink Milk Podcast. We've got Broaxium with comics. We got Space Waffles. We've got Beyond the Blast Doors Live opening up. And Force Connect. I'm so excited it's going to close at the show. But that being said, you know, you can always check out Bombadcast every Thursday. Obviously, we'll be here. Next week, we're talking about the Terrifying Tales Lego series. Lego's movie that's going to drop.
Can you believe that it's already here? Can you believe it's
already October, baby?
We're going to get spooky.
Jerry, plug your weird little thing.
You know, I got a show where I'll have a person on, and we're taking a break this Tuesday. I posted on the thing. We're taking a break. I'm actually going to be recording a show with another podcast that night, and that's the only night we can make work. Jeez. And so there's a little sizzle for something like that. Look, let's just say watch for an episode coming up of Force Friends rewatch. Let's just say that it's going to get spicy, y'all. But yeah, no, check it out. And Scotty, I don't know what else we got going on the channel.
I've got nothing going on this week coming up with Bombad Gaming. Unfortunately, I will be seeing, and I'm not joking when I say this, I'm not seeing Kiss. I'm sorry, I am seeing Kiss next Wednesday. So I'm seeing Kiss again. So that's what I'm doing next Wednesday night. That's no joke.
You got to get in as many right now, not to be morbid, but you got to get in as many as you possibly can.
Of the road. That's why.
I mean, the time bomb is ticking.
That being said, I think some people actually ordered this shirt and they have gotten it in. I ordered 3 of them and I still haven't gotten them in. I ordered them 2 weeks ago, so I'm a little pissed off. So I'm gonna reach out to
You gotta stop covering up Nick. Nick's the most handsome part of this thing.
He really is. But Nick, you know what to do. You've done this show before. How do we sign out? What do we do? Oh, real quick, actually, I'll be uploading.
Hold on, Nick. Hold.
I will be uploading my my conversation with Gene Simmons and Paul Stanley that I had a very brief.
It really happened.
100%.
It really happened.
I'll be uploading that this evening once we're done tonight. And yeah. That being said, Nick, you know what you should do.
Stay James Bond bad.
This is your wake-up call. Time to reach, go for it all. Vulture stirs inside of me, and I know what I can be. Limit is the sky. Hey world, watch me fly.